Hi, Riverside Brookfield. I'm your host, Casey Vileta, and welcome to Sports Recap. If you're looking for the latest updates in the RB, college, and professional world, we have it. We'll discuss player and team updates and records, and every show, a player or coach will be interviewed. To start off, the varsity boys basketball team is 24-3 overall and a perfect 10-0 against conference teams. Their latest game was a defeat to the 14th ranked team in Illinois, St. Charles East, by a score of 76-67. The Bulldogs stuck around to the hot shooting Saints, down 50-34 at the half. They couldn't pull off the comeback though. Senior Sam Johnson had 23 points and 10 rebounds and 5 assists, while Mark Smith had 13 points. Sophomore Jalen Clanton also scored 9 points for the Dogs. The loss drops RB from the 12th ranked team in Illinois to the 14th. The Bulldogs now prepare for the Leiden Regional coming up later this week. I'll move on to the Lady Bulldogs varsity basketball team. A game to highlight was one that happened a little while ago. They took on rival Lyons Township in a nail-biter, winning by a score of 55-50. With the score 38-37 RB heading into the fourth quarter, the Lady Dogs hit 12 free throws to hold on for the win. Samantha Bloom had 23 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists, and was 8 of 8 on free throws. 6'7" sophomore Dana Retke had 20 points and 9 blocks. Sophomore Lindsay Lloyd also had 4 points and 5 steals. Their last victory of the season was against Aurora Central Catholic with a close score of 40-39. Dana Retke was the leading scorer with 24 points and an amazing 15 rebounds. The wins gave the Lady Bulldogs a final regular season record of 26-4 overall and 9-3 in the division, which gave them second place in the Metro Suburban Conference. The Dogs sadly lost their first playoff game in a nail-biter and await the upcoming season. We'll take a short break. Don't change the channel. When we return, we will discuss the recent losses of Stuart Scott, Ernie Banks, and also we'll discuss the Super Bowl. We're back. We'll first take a moment to remember two important people we recently lost in the sports world. Stuart Scott was born July 19, 1965, and passed away January 4, 2015. He was an American sportscaster and anchor on ESPN, most notably on the network SportsCenter. Scott grew up in North Carolina and graduated from the University of North Carolina. He joined ESPN in 1993. In 2007, Scott learned that he had cancer in his appendix. He was again diagnosed with it in 2011 and 2013. Scott was honored at the ESPY Awards in 2014 with the Jimmy V Award for his fight against cancer, shortly before his death in 2015 at the age of 49. Mr. Cub Ernie Banks also passed away this year. Banks was born January 31, 1931, and passed January 23, 2015. He was a Major League Baseball shortstop and first baseman for 19 seasons, 1953 through 1971, all with the Chicago Cubs. He was a National League All-Star for 11 seasons, playing in 14 All-Star games. Banks was born and raised in Dallas, Texas, and played Negro League Baseball in 1950 for the Kansas City Monarchs. Banks made his first All-Star Game appearance in 1955. He received 2 consecutive National League MVP awards in 1958 and 1959. Banks was player coach from 1967 to 1971. In 1970, Banks' 500th career home run. In 1972, he joined the Cubs coaching staff after retiring as a player and was inducted into the National Baseball Hall of Fame in 1977. In 1999, he was named to the MLB All-Century team. In 2013, he was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom for his contributions to the sports world. Chicago will dearly miss Mr. Cub. We move on to the Super Bowl. In Glendale, Arizona, the New England Patriots defeated the Seattle Seahawks 28-24 in a nail-biter. The Patriots are down 10 going into the final quarter, but with 2:02 left, wide receiver Julian Edelman caught a 3-yard catch from Tom Brady to take the lead. On the Seahawks' final drive, quarterback Russell Wilson connected with Jermaine Kearse on one of the best catches in Super Bowl history. The ball hit Kearse's hands, and as him and rookie Patriots quarterback Malcolm Butler fell, he reached with one hand, tipped the ball again into the air, and caught it for a 33-yard gain with 1:06 left. After a 4-yard run on 2nd and 1 with 26 seconds left and 1 yard to get a touchdown, Patriots rookie cornerback Malcolm Butler intercepted Wilson's pass intended for Ricardo Lockett to seal the win. Tom Brady won the MVP honors with 328 passing yards and 4 touchdowns. Patriots receiver Julian Edelman had 9 catches for 109 yards to go along with his game-winning touchdown, and tight end Rob Gronkowski had 6 catches for 68 yards and a touchdown. We'll take a short break, and when we return, we will talk with the Superintendent, Dr. Kevin Skinkis, about his plans for the new athletic facility. Welcome back to Sports Recap. Joining me on this segment is Superintendent Dr. Skinkis. Thank you for being on my show. So, what's the basic outline of the new athletic facility?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Casey. I appreciate the invitation. So this is the most recent drawing that we have of the whole capital improvements and life safety project that's supposed to be taking place this spring here at Riverside Brookfield High School. If we start with the stadium, one thing that will change around the entire stadium will be new fencing around all of our perimeter. That was a life safety issue. All the current fencing is rusted and peeling up, is a tripping and pedestrian hazard. So we'll have all new fencing around the athletic complex. The next biggest thing we're working on is replacing the field turf. Our field turf was purchased in 2006, so the warranty expired after 7 years, which was 2013. And anybody that's familiar with our site know that we deal with some significant flooding whenever we get heavy rains. We get a lot of ponding on the track and ponding on the field turf, which is not good for your field turf. And last year we had it happen twice. The year before, when we had significant rain, we had it 2 or 3 times. We had parts of our field swelling up, almost kind of like a waterbed, which means there's significant water underneath it.
It's a safety hazard for players, is it?
Well, it's a safety hazard as well as there's underneath the actual turf is different fill, like rubber tire fill and sand, and all that stuff gets moved around, and then the field does not lay the same way a second time. So we're working on trying to fix the flood control underneath the field and the track so that we don't get any more flooding in this area. We'll also be replacing a new base and a new track surface. Our current track surface is pretty much just a concrete base with an asphalt overcoat, which is why you see a lot of significant peeling of the track surface. And we have a lot of our student athletes that participate in track. Our training room is usually full during track season with shin splints. So we're going to be working on trying to get a new surface and base to this track to improve student safety and also the longevity of the track. We'll be putting in new visitor bleachers to be ADA compliant. That was a life safety issue. Also with stairs and hand railings. New home bleachers. The most recent drawing, these are public restrooms, which we currently do not have at the facility. We currently rent porta potties, so there'll be new public restrooms. This will be the new concession stand. The locker rooms will be underneath the new home bleachers. We'll have new home bleachers. We're going with a watertight system so that we can use all the space underneath the bleachers that's not being filled by the locker room as a cold storage, but it's weather protected so that we can put the hurdles and the different track mats and different equipment from the stadium underneath the home bleachers.
So going back to the field and the track, are those major upgrades on safety for the players?
The track is an upgrade on safety. The field is, I wouldn't necessarily relate that to safety as much as I would relate that to it's out of warranty, it's not in the condition it needs to be in. Even when we're meeting with all the vendors right now from the field turf companies, they're telling us 10 to 15 years is the life expectancy of a new field. So we're right at close to that 10-year mark, and so we wanted to get it so that it can last. Now this field is used all the time. I mean, if you think about it, PE classes are out there. We have 2 soccer teams, both in the fall and the spring, between boys and girls soccer. Football teams, we rent the field to St. Mary's. We have a semi-pro team that rents the field. Those all help generate revenues for the high school. So it's time for an upgrade in that surface.
So a lot of wear and tear when it goes into that track and field.
It does. I mean, if those two, I mean, if you think about it, that's really the only 2 fields. Well, that's the only 2 athletic surfaces outside the building that we really own. The baseball field belongs to the Forest Preserve, and so that's not our field. We use it sometimes for practice, but this is our primary field, and this is our primary space for PE classes.
So for the track, is it more soft, like where an impact, it doesn't take as much impact on the ankles?
Correct. So you're looking for a surface that has some give to it and softer.
Not as hard.
Correct. And now one thing that we're talking about doing that will be slightly different is we're going to fill this part of the stadium in with turf, so it's an extra space for practice facility, and the track, high jump and triple jump and pole vault will be moved over to the current grass field that's behind the old grandstand. All that's been demolished now, so there's nothing there. And we're moving the shot put up into the southeast corner.
Okay. Well, we'll take a short break, and when we come back on Sports Recap, we'll talk about the new fan experiences in the new state athletic facility. Welcome back. Dr. Skinkis and I will talk about the new fan experience at the new athletic facility. So, what new major features will change the fan experience?
Well, I think probably the one that's been getting the most attention is the addition of a new parking lot off of the northwest corner of the stadium. Parking has plagued RB for several decades. We're so landlocked. We currently rent this street, Rockefeller Street, from the village of Brookfield, and the teacher's lot is rented from the Forest Preserve, so we spend about $34,000 a year in parking. So the addition of these 90 parking spaces will be a significant increase to what fans experience. Usually what happens is once the Rockefeller and the teacher's lot fills up, if the teacher's lot is open, if there's not a conflicting event with the zoo, is people were expected to park in the south lot of the Brookfield Zoo, and if they didn't have if they weren't zoo members, they had to pay for their parking. So that was kind of unique to the RB experience, that people would come to visit RB High School and have to pay for parking.
Definitely. My fan experience with going to RB football games was once that entire parking lot is filled, it'd always be like a struggle and a hassle for me and my dad to find a parking spot. We usually go along the streets.
Yeah, and that was another issue. We were getting a lot of concerns from local residents about parking on the streets and in front of houses and blocking driveways. So there's no doubt that this has become definitely a focal point between the high school, the village, and some of the residents. But overall, I think this improvement in addition will help not only RB High School, but the fans when they come to RB High School and people visit RB High School. It's an additional 90 parking spaces. Considering that we own 0, this is a significant upgrade.
So what other features will impact, such as the new concession stands?
Yeah, Casey, as I stated earlier, those of you that have visited the stadium knew that there was basically like a shed that the boosters had built several years ago, and they would serve concessions out of that, and then they had their tents next to the concession stand where they would make their food and grill their sandwiches, etc. Now we'll actually have a concession stand here. There'll be 2 windows, and then there'll be a 3rd window on this side for the selling of spiritware for the booster club. Currently, we only use porta potties around the facility for public restrooms. There'll be a public restroom here for the visiting side. The home side will have the auto shop open, which has usually been the case, but for public restrooms. We're also going to put a perimeter fence around the track so that, one, to protect the life expectancy of the track surface, but also allow so that if fans wanted to stand and watch the game, they'd have a fence to lean on and keep them out of harm's way, so they would be significant distance away from the field and the track.
So what were some of the costs for that? Did you have to take away anything to have an improvement?
Right now, one of the bigger things that we had originally had a garage attached to the concession stand for some storage. That was eliminated, so it'll just be the public restrooms here, and we decided to go with a watertight bleacher system so that underneath the bleachers can serve as a storage. So that saved some significant dollars with the elimination of the garage for storage. Another thing that we eliminated, one of the things that we're working on right now was redesigning the HVAC system, the air quality system inside the new locker room, and how it will be heated and ventilated. So mechanicals are always an expensive thing in construction. And the thing that we're currently working out with the Village of Brookfield will be our stormwater detention. We have to provide some stormwater overflow for the new parking lot, but but also we're trying to create some additional stormwater detention to get some of the drainage off the field into a stormwater vault before it goes out to the sewers, so that we can try to prevent some of the flooding that's occurring on the field and the track.
So what are your thoughts on this entire project?
You know, right now it's a stressful time as a superintendent overseeing this project with the construction manager and architect. I'm learning a lot about construction and construction management. As always, you want to try to make sure you stay under budget and that the project comes in on time. So having to work through the different codes with the village and with the architects and with the MWRD, I'm learning a lot. But I'm very excited about what this is going to be for RB High School for several years to come.
I'm very excited too. Well, thank you for being on my show.
Thank you, Casey.
And next segment, we will have coaches Olson and Coach Curtin talking about their ideas, their thoughts of the new athletic facility. Welcome back to Sports Recap. Joining me on this segment are Coach Curtin of the football team and Coach Olson of the track team. Thank you for both joining me on the show.
Thanks for having us, Casey.
So what are your both first reactions to the new athletic facility across the street?
Well, my initial reaction was somewhat bittersweet. You know, it's always it's tough to see change and experience change. You know, Shuey Stadium obviously has been around a long time. I grew up in the Hollywood community, so I spent countless summers polishing my skills on that field, and then played on that field as a Bulldog, and now was able to return as a coach. So somewhat saddening to see such an iconic structure be destroyed this past week in this change, but at the same time it's very exciting to see some of the mock-ups and to see the direction of the athletic facility. Pretty exciting to say that, you know, been able to coach and compete in both venues. So it's exciting times, so looking forward to it.
What about you, Mr. Olson?
I think Coach Curtin's sentiments ring true for a lot of people, and they just don't build stadiums like that anymore, and to see it go down is bittersweet, as he said. But again, focusing on what the mock-ups look like and the newness and the facility we're going to have, I think there's a lot of positives as well, and it's exciting because as a track team, you know, especially the surface for us being new, I think we'll have a lot of positive outcomes.
That's good. So have you guys seen any of the new features or heard about any of the new features that are going to come?
Sure, we've both been included to some degree in terms of what the new structure would look like and what it would entail. And you know, every facet of the stadium, every facet of the facility is going to be top shelf, state-of-the-art venue. So it's a great opportunity for us as coaches as well as our student athletes to have that opportunity to compete in such a special place.
Yeah, and then for the track program, it's the one thing that I really, a lot of it will be similar to what we have. Obviously the mock-up things are changing, but the surface it appears to be a nice upgrade, and that when I mean the surface is the actual running surface for the track events. And it was kind of cool sitting in the presentations of the vendors and the amount of physics that goes into these surfaces, and you can get surfaces that are faster, and you can get surfaces that are more forgiving and less injuries. And I think we're leaning towards a more forgiving surface that will have less injuries, and I'm excited about that because it'll make training easier, and I think the performances will increase with less injuries, quite obviously.
So are you both happy with the new outlook for the field and the track?
I would say so. I mean, I think we're coaches of simple means. You know, give me a football field that's 120 yards long with 2 goalposts and 53 yards wide. We're good to go. We just want a place to call home and a place to play. But you know, all that aside, I think more space in the locker room, a more spacious locker room, training room, more storage. Those are all things that you know, will be an upgrade, so to speak. You know, again, it's tough to see such a special location, special facility go away. But you know, given what we have coming in the near future, it's pretty special. So we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, and again, for track, it's a lot of what we had, just newer, updated, and then the surface. You know, lately we've been running on asphalt basically, and it's created a lot of injuries in the program. So we're really excited about an actual surface that will be more forgiving, and I think it's something to be excited about. You're not going to always get everything you want, and there's money considerations, but it's going to be a nice facility when they're finished.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear that you both are happy with the new plans. And how do you think the players are going to be impacted by the new changes?
I think Well, the football players are certainly well aware of what's at stake, and I think they gave Shuey Stadium a proper send-off in the sense that we were undefeated at home this past season. We went 4-0, which was a tribute to all the teams that played on that field before the 2014 team. And I think the players that are returning next year are well aware that first home game, there's going to be pictures of that game laced on these hallways, from top to bottom within this building. It'll be a special night. It'll be a special occasion. So if our guys don't know what's at stake now, they certainly will once we have our first practice on that new facility. So it'll be challenging, but we'll be ready.
Yeah, and with track, I think with the new facility, what makes maybe a little bit of upside is trying to get athletes out to the program and showing them the new facility and the more spacious locker rooms, the nicer surface. Pretty much every aspect being brand new. Sometimes track can be a tough sell. It's not one of the first tier sports in the sense of, in the fall we have the Chicago Bears, and in the winter we have the Bulls and the Blackhawks, and in the summer we have the Cubs and the Sox. We don't really have it. Track doesn't have that kind of notoriety. So I think just getting more kids out, more kids interested, the facility will help in that aspect.
Well, we'll cut to commercial now, but when we come back, we'll be talking about projections with the new team.
Sounds great.
Love it. Welcome back to Sports Recap. In this segment, we will be talking with Coach Curtin and Coach Olson about their team projections in the new Shuey Stadium. So, Coach, what do you think your team's record will look like in the end of the season, in the end of the first season in the new stadium?
Well, we're certainly working hard. Kids have been working out approximately 6 times a week in preparations for next season. And we're excited about who we have coming back and what we have coming back. And we're not the type of program to live in the past. However, we did let a conference championship slip through our fingers in the last 2.4 seconds of the game. So that was painful, and I think that's a feeling that a lot of the young men remember when they walk through the doors of the weight room. So they've been working hard. I envision us being competitive in every game. I envision us competing for a conference title, and I also envision us making it onto the second season, but obviously everything starts with that first game. So in terms of projections, it's hard to give you a number. Obviously the magic number to get into the second season is always 6 wins. So I think that's every program's goal, is to get to that point. But in terms of making projections, I'll leave that to the media types such as yourself to make those projections. But I think we'll be ready. We got a good core group of guys coming back.
So you still think they'll be contenders? We're looking forward to seeing.
I do. I think we'll be able to build upon last season. I think we'll have some sustained success. We have 4 returning seniors that have seen action as sophomores and juniors as well, that have a considerable amount of experience. And it was the Bulldogs' first trip back to the playoffs this past season, which it's, if you haven't been to the playoffs in a while, to have that experience is extremely valuable, when you're facing a team that does have playoff experience. So I do believe that, we'll take another stride in the right direction this season.
Okay. And your thoughts, Coach Olson?
So we're, we got our season coming up, and our seasons typically are all about the seniors. So I'm excited because we have a nice group of seniors in the program right now. High school track has 18 events, and at this time of year, when you're looking at the 18 events and projecting, you're always wishing you had more. But in our distance, Eugene Makovetsky. In our sprints, a lot of football players: Matt Chapp, Mike McCabe, Marvin McKenzie, Otis Dortch. And some of our field event guys, Louis Grigoletti, Jordan Petronella, and Nick Quarino, are really a solid base for us, I think, to have a successful year. We're coming off 2 conference championships in a row. Against a high-quality conference when it comes to running and track specifically. And, we've made a run at LT in the sectional a couple of years in a row. Similar to Coach Curtin, always looking to build on prior successes, not focusing on them too much. And it's just a brand new year. It's way too hard to predict. And for us, Coach Curtin just went through this. We have a brand new conference, and I really don't have the strongest feel on all the teams that we're now joining in this new conference and their strengths and weaknesses. So we're just hoping that, kids give their best performances at the end of the year, and that's a successful season.
Do you have any players to watch, Coach Kern?
I think, we're just wrapping up our first phase of the off-season workouts. And there's a couple guys that have been standing out. I think they're seniors in Jeremiah Clarkson, Zach Butch Whitkin, Dan DeLeon. Those are just a few of the guys who We're kind of in next man in type roles last season, where I think you'll see some explosive play out of all three of those guys in the year to come, and many more obviously. But these are guys that I think have paid their dues and they're ready to make the next step, and they'll be significant contributors in the 2015 campaign.
That's good. And what are your guys' thoughts on keeping players safe while competing in a high-quality conference?
Well, obviously, that's a big message that I send to my coaching staff week in and week out, is making sure that we keep guys healthy, keep them prepared to compete on Friday nights. We don't do a whole lot of tackling down to the ground throughout the course of the week. A lot of our tackling is done on bags or on air, so to speak, with high jump mats. Very rarely are we going full go throughout the course of the week. We find that if we teach that technique and the fundamentals in a more scaled down version in a one-on-one setting or a two-on-two setting, that there's a strong carryover once we get into those game-like situations. So obviously safety is always number one, and we're always going to err to the cautious side in terms of making that decision if a young man's ready to go or not, if he has suffered an injury.
Well, that's good to hear from a coach.
Mm-hmm.
I think in track, as in all sports, if you can stay healthy, you can be successful, and it's something that we spend a lot of time educating the athletes in trying to alter our workouts to make sure that we're getting the max performance with not creating injury situations. And track is such a repetitive sport that these injuries, little things, can turn into major problems. Not to mention, we have a first-rate training staff here that we rely heavily on for this education and for this proactive treatment to help kids work through some soreness that doesn't turn into injury. And I'll revert back to the last segment. I'm really excited about the potential of the next surface, and I've made my thoughts clear to the administration. Whatever money is able to be spent on player safety with the surface and the bounce and the physics I was alluding to is only going to alleviate these lower body injuries and create, I think, more success and healthier athletes, which is probably the most important aspect.
Again, that's really good to hear. And that's all for this segment. And next segment, I will talk with the coaches about professional sports topics and top stories in the sports world. Welcome back to Sports Recap. I'm here with Coach Curtin and Coach Olson, and we'll be discussing some professional sports topics. So, Coach, what do you watch any college or professional sports teams on TV?
Sure, I do. Usually after our high school football season concludes, that will allow me a little time to catch up on the state of college football. I usually follow it from afar, but usually kind of busy during the high school season. But once that season concludes, I have a little more time to follow the Bears, and Notre Dame football are two of my favorite teams to follow, so to speak, among others.
So it's mainly college football?
Primarily college football. I enjoy watching college football. It's the next level, and it's kind of neat to watch guys that you've coached against and players that you've coached move on to the next level and follow what it is they're doing on Saturday afternoons. It's kind of neat.
And you, Mr. Olson?
Similar. I with the not coaching football in the fall, I had a little more free time, but I'm more of a Big Ten fan. I went to Illinois, which has been a rough team to follow lately, so I've become a fair weather Big Ten fan, and it was an exciting, New Year's Day and postseason bowl series with how well the Big Ten performed. So that was fun to watch. But anything that's on TV, football, NFL, college is always interesting to me, as long as my wife will allow it to be on as much as she can stand.
So do you guys have any favorite teams out of any of the major sports?
Obviously I'm a Chicago Bears fan at heart. I kind of grew up as a Notre Dame fan. Outside of those teams, I suppose, some people might call me a bandwagon jumper, but I'm always intrigued to watch the Patriots compete, and I'm always, they're always doing some pretty neat things on both sides of the ball. And, some of the West Coast teams, what they're doing from an offensive standpoint, it's always neat to watch, and, they're always putting up some big numbers, so it's some good football to watch.
It was an exciting off-season when it comes to football. And you?
Similar with the bandwagon stuff, like everyone, this is a Bears town. I think it goes without saying that if you're from Chicago, you're a Bears fan. And then from there, kind of people have their different tastes. This year I enjoyed Michigan State. I like the way they play defense. I like that kind of smash mouth football that, had a lot of success this year. Wisconsin, Midwest football. And then a little, I'm interested to see what happens in Michigan, even though from Illinois and, I'm not the biggest fan of Michigan, but Jim Harbaugh might change that for me. I have fond memories of watching Jim Harbaugh compete as a player for the Bears and other teams.
So it's currently the baseball offseason, and the White Sox and the Cubs have been loading up on their chances with their salary being very full. So do you guys watch the White Sox or the Cubs?
I do. I follow both teams, but I'm more of a White Sox fan at heart.
Oh, excuse me, sorry.
Born and raised that way, so White Sox family, with the exception of my oldest brother, but the rest of us are all Sox fans.
Similar. I'm a Sox fan. I have fond memories of my grandpa taking me to the old Comiskey Park when I was a little kid, and I think just from there, I became a diehard Sox fan. 2005 is up there with me. 85 Bears as memories, sports-wise, and I'm intrigued what's going on the north side, but I'm not a fan. I think in Chicago, I believe you have to pick one or the other. You can't be a fan of both.
So you think the Sox will go far this year with their offseason additions?
I think so. It's kind of neat. Jeff Samardzija, I think, is a talented pitcher, and him being a former Notre Dame football player and a former Cub, to see him kind of turn the corner and bring some value to the Southsiders will be fun to watch. And obviously, it'll be intriguing to see what the Cubs do this year. They're always full of optimism, but it seems like it's even higher this year, given with where they're at with all their off-season transactions. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think there's just, if you watch baseball and like the Royals, the Sox have put themselves in a position to compete, and then they just, got to see how the season plays out.
That's good to know. And
Keep in mind, Casey, you're talking to two non-baseball guys, but correct?
Well, true, true.
So,
but it's good to hear your thoughts
Sure.
on different sports topics.
Sure, absolutely.
And the last question I'm going to ask you is, do you take any tips from professional or college sports coaches?
Absolutely. I'm a big believer in the professional development side of things. I always set aside a couple trips every spring to go to a college. Last year, I went to University of Wisconsin-Whitewater for a 2-day clinic with their coaches, get some ideas, exchange some ideas. I always have a book on my nightstand and a book on my office desk. I'm usually reading something that's either involved to professional athletics or college football or military history, something along those lines. So there's always more to be learned.
Yourself, Coach Wilson?
Yeah, well, with track, we do a lot of professional development as well, but the people that I'm following are not anyone that anyone's going to know. But, always looking for tips from the professionals, whether it's the college level or the Olympic level circuit.
Well, I'll thank you guys for being on my show, and we'll be right back on Sports Recaps with final comments and closing. Thanks for tuning in for our inaugural show of Sports Recap. I'm your host, Casey Vileta. Keep on watching sports.